Hello, good evening. My name is Tim Thelman, or Mr. Tim, and I want to introduce you to the Win32 C++ series that we put together for a high school homeschool co-op here in Oklahoma City. Um, we were forced to go online because of the coronavirus, and we've gone online for that. And now we are upgrading the videos, and I'm just going to make them a complete series on YouTube because we've really learned a lot from this class. Um, the Win32 C++ series is based on the foundational knowledge of C++, Windows 32. So if you're new to this, I kind of wish I'd done the C++ console class, which is C++ console programming. I wish we would have done that, but it didn't work out that way. But I may eventually go back and redo those classes for a follow-up for students. One of the things that our students did do in the first semester of the C++ programming, we did a lot of console programming. One of the tools that we used here, and let me shrink this down because you need less of me and more of my screen here, is we use Solo Learn C++. This is a great program. The kids worked through this, and they went through and understood all the basic concepts, conditions and loops, data types and array pointers. You learn some of the basic C++ data types. You're going to learn some new data types even today as we get into the Win32 APIs that allow us to do graphical. We actually developed a project that allowed to do quizzing for multiplication. Again, this went over functions. We will be using a lot of functions this semester. You need to know how to do functions, and you need to know how to call and use and create classes and objects, and how to understand how abstraction and what a class is and all that stuff. So we'll be using a lot of these concepts in this class. If you don't have a basic understanding of C++, I would strongly encourage you to go through the Solo Learn C++ class. There's several modules. Our kids went through the first 5 modules, and we did some exercises, and we had, of course, a whole semester worth of lectures. But this is pretty much some of the foundation of what we did. Some of the kids had some programming experience before, but they seem to grab a hold of this pretty good. Now, since a lot of places where I've worked, there's a lot of industry standards for an ADE. The ADE we use is the free version of Visual Studio. This is provided by Microsoft.com. And this is what Visual Studio looks like here. And I just want to show you that. The one that we will be creating a new project tonight, and this is highlighted in this little box here. If you want all these Word documents here, then they are available. Please contact me. We can get them to you for a small fee, but we can give you the code snippets. There's a lot of bitmaps and WAV files in this class over the next 16 weeks. And so we're going to be putting together a little package where you can actually get those all zipped up and sent to you for a reasonable fee, $30 or something like that. But they'll save you probably 30 hours of work at least. So, but we're going to go ahead and look at that. So we created a base project, but you want to install Visual Studio. What I would do is I'd go to Microsoft. If you have a Windows desktop, I would go to msdn.com. I would log in to msdn.com. If you log into your computer with a Microsoft, with an email and a regular online Microsoft account, that Microsoft account you use to log into your computer with will be the same username and password you log into MSDN with as a free user. And then there's 3 levels of Visual Studio. I would just download the free version of Visual Studio. It's very easy to use. It's an industry standard, and it's a good tool to get used to. A lot of shops use it. It's standard within DoD, so strongly encourage you all to use it. But for this module, for the next 16 weeks or next 16 videos, which is more than 16 systems, we have part A and part B, we're going to be using the Windows desktop application, C++, Windows, and desktop. Some people say, well, why are you doing C++? Let me name a project here. I'm going to call my project here WinVid1. It's going to create in my home directory, and I'm going to create that. But why, people would ask, why are you doing Win32? Well, again, these kids are new to programming. Win32 allows us to do 2-dimensional graphics in, some of the OpenGL and some of the newer stuff is 3-dimensional graphics inside a world. And really, this is a programming class to get on your debugging skills. It's built around the concept of a game, so that you're through the whole semester, every assignment is in every lesson allows you to work towards a project. Now, when you first create a project, now I've just created this project. I have WinVid1. This thing, it comes with several lines of code. I mean, there's code, 181 lines of code. It has a basic Windows Win32 API laid out, and none of it makes any sense to you until you walk through it. So we're going to do something really kind of fun. Is you're going to hit Control A, and you're going to hit the delete key, and you're going to say File Save, because that's where we're going to start. We're not going to start with the Microsoft Standard Foundation, because I try to play around with that, and you just end up stumbling around it. It'll make sense in about 4 or 5 weeks, but we'll get more into that as we go. But you don't need any of that stuff right now. We just want to be able to make sure you guys understand every piece. And so the only way to understand it, build it yourself, right? And walk through, what do these things mean? So just like in the beginning programming class, there are, go jump over here, there's data types and arrays. I want to talk about this. Introduction to data types here in here. They'll go through here and say, and go through there, and they'll say, okay, these are all data types, and we have integer and string data types that we continually build upon, and they talk about stuff like that, but you have to realize that they int, float, double, string, char, bool, these are all data types. Integer stores integers, floats and doubles store decimal, strings and chars and bools, booleans store true and false, and variable naming rules, which are good things. This class here gets you into understanding some of the basic variable types or object types, because an integer is just an object. When we do C++ object-oriented programming, you have to think of an int or a string or a char as just an object. If I have something called first name, it's an object, okay? So we're going to be talking about some new objects tonight. We've gone in through here, we've created a blank project, and we're going to do a real simple project here. We're going to include, of course, all the new Windows programming requires Windows.h, and we're going to play around with tchar, because tchar helps us do a few things that we need to do. So we're going to do a little comment here in C++. And one of the things that the guides allow you to do is, once we've talked through the code, we can just grab this stuff and go up through here. And then in C++ console programming, the main procedure that every C++ program has is called main, right? And it has no parameters. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but the solo learn stuff will go through that. Well, in C++ and Win32s, everything has a procedure called WinMain. So we're gonna write some code here. If you think I can type that fast, you're crazy. Okay. So anyway, we're gonna go through here and we're gonna run this, and then I'm gonna come back and explain it. And this is gonna be the first GUI programming that our students saw after a whole semester doing character programming, and there it is, hello. Okay, and so we threw a message box on here. It said hello, but what is this underscore T here? That's very interesting, because all this is a message box and it says okay. But why can't we just put regular strings here? You know? Well, welcome to Windows, right? Welcome to Microsoft, because in console programming, okay, you were basically tied to an ASCII screen, which means you were tied to the English language. Let me pull up a document that I have here. I think it should be right here. Okay, this is inside the document here, which these documents would be delivered when we kick off the class with you. It has this URL in it. Well, if you pull up this URL, it has a lot of things from Microsoft.com that tells you about a lot of things. Well, one of them is a message box, and the message box is just a class. It's just a class or a function that's available to us, and it takes 4 parameters. Now, we're used to defining functions or classes that we can pass ints or strings to and get booleans back and stuff like that. But this is a little bit interesting, because this message box function, which is included in our Windows.h stuff right here, it returns an int, and we're like, okay, we're okay with an integer, but then the parameter doesn't necessarily have to, it doesn't have to receive back an int. Okay, so here's what we did. We declared a main, we gave it an instance name, so everything has an instance that it makes reference to back in Windows. And then we have this LPCSTR string, which we're not passing, called args, which we're not passing anything into. And we have an int new command show. But when we do the message box, let's see what we're doing with message box. We're passing in a window handle, HWND. That's the window, like this right here is a window. This whole thing is a window. And up here, actually Visual Studio is a window. But, okay, there is no window here. And that's the beauty of message boxes. They can stand all by themselves. They don't have to have a window throw them off. They can just jump up right in the middle of your stuff and say, here I am, I'm a message box. I don't need no parent. You just need to come talk to me. So the window handle that this belongs to is null. Okay. Now we want to say hello, and then my first GUI, and we want to say MBOK. Well, when we say MBOK, that's a unit type, and there's a lot of message boxes here, and MBOK is one of, we can say MB yes, no, MB retry cancel. If you say yes or no, then your integer is going to return something based upon how they answer it, okay? MBOK is just an OK button, but if you want to grab the value of it, there's stuff going on with yes and no, and in the integer returned, and the integer being returned will be dependent upon how they interact with the message box. MB yes no is there, and all that stuff. So we could catch a result from it. But what is this? What is this? LPCTR care. The text is made in type LPCTR. Why it looks like just a string, but why is it LPCTR? Well, that's called a Unicode string. Let's drop down here in the document here. Okay, Unicode string LPCTR. So, welcome to Microsoft. Welcome to Windows. Okay, welcome to LPCTR string. Because when we use LPCTR string, then we can say hello world, and we can say it in English. Okay, but if someone takes your little button and it says hello world, then someone opens it in France, it's going to say whatever hello world is in France, in French, because French is going to be their assigned language, and that LPCTR string is going to do translations to the local language. Does that make sense? And then if you go to China, then it's actually going to show Chinese characters there. If you go to Japan, it's going to show Japanese characters there. Okay? So it's one of those amazing things. It's like, okay, we leave ASCII and go into an international Unicode. Unicode meaning it's a uniform international and standard. International unified nomenclature. Unified. And so this is approved. C++ is a standardized worldwide language. So that's why we use C++. Win32 objects allow us to design applications that can be used on Microsoft machines throughout the world. But we can't think in string terms anymore because that's not our world, because our world is so much bigger than just English context. So anyway, so all of the Win32 APIs that we're going to work with here, you're going to see them take LPCSTR, and you're going to see us working with these strings. Does that make sense? So that's where they come from, that's who they are, and that's why we see, okay, we're going to take our English language text and we want to convert it to that Control Z, and that converts it to text. If I just pass a string there, it's like, I don't know what a regular English word is. Sorry about that. So that's what it's doing. And then we're saying button type and be okay. If we go in here and look at the document types that are inside MessageBox, and I've explained all this, of how to create a MessageBox. We can also look at creating a window. In the description, how to build a window is here, how to create a window. But we have to understand, once we get into creating windows, we have to understand what a case statement is. And really, case statements, we get to build a window in the next exercise, okay? All we're doing here is playing around with MessageBox, and we're going to play around today with a few of the, be able to get a few things going here, but it's, yeah. So we're going to look at, so there's that thing, you can say yes, no. And if I said yes, no, and I hit stop, that would be the stop button. That would be the run button for Visual Studio. Hello, and you can say yes or no. So yes, no, it has 2 buttons on it. These are standard message boxes. So this lesson here wants you to be able to get into this and start understanding a few things, but we also want to be able to understand a case statement here. Okay, now a case statement will allow us to do a few things here, and we want to begin playing. Before we get into Windows, we want to understand how a case statement works. And so we come up with this little piece of code over here. Let me grab this real quick. And we wanted to do this with a message box because we want to understand some of the core programming concepts with message boxes before we get into some major programming. So I'm going to go put this code in here. And this won't compile yet because of this. Okay, we'd added a little function for sounds, and I'm going to take this out also because we don't have that here available to us. But that was to play an applause sound. That's not here. But what we want to do is we're going to do our same win main. We're going to put a message box, but notice that and do you want to try again, and then it's going to put that message box, and if so they're going to hit message box, and then the message box is going to return a label. We're going to play around with some things that come with the message box, and it is okay. We have all these button types, okay, cancel, and all these different things, but one of the things the message box does is it returns various labels. Now I want to show you this very carefully, and then we'll go back and look at the case statement. But we're going to say the message box is, again, no window handle, okay? The resource is not available. Do you want to try again? We're just going to put a string out there with an underscore L this time and say count details. And we're going to put an icon warning on it. And we're going to say cancel, try continue in the buffer logon. Now if they hit cancel, the message box ID is going to be equal to ID cancel. And ID cancel is, so see here we determined, and we said this time, the first time we did this, we just wanted a message box, kind of like how we're doing here. But we're getting the message box ID back, and we're declaring it as an integer, but Windows automatically keeps these as a constant. So they have constants for ID cancel, try again, and continue. If they say try again, we'll get this is try again, and this is hit cancel. And so we can grab the result of the message box based upon what's going on. So if they get hit cancel, we should say account details, okay, resource not available, do you want to try again? So we see this up here, okay? And then if they say cancel, we should get another, so I'm going to say cancel. You hit cancel, hello. And that's the end of the code. And so what we're getting used to is using a switch case statement. Now, when we get into Windows programming, we're going to be asking, okay, once we get a window active, we get some buttons put on there, we get some fields put on there, which we're going to walk through in the next couple classes. We get to a point where we're like going, okay, the user hit a key. What key did they hit? Did they hit a tab? Because all of a sudden we have these multiple Windows messages, okay, coming at us Did they click the mouse? Did they touch the screen? Are they using a VR headset? Are they using a game controller? Are they using their keyboard? Are they using their touchpad? All these things fire Windows messages. And we have these giant case statements that say, well, if they hit next, or they hit done, or if they hit tab, then if they're in this field and they hit tab, then we want to do this. All that stuff has to be programmed out in Windows 32. And the thing that we usually use a lot to handle is the case statement. Case statement can be anything we want to. As you can see here, the first one, it was ID cancel. And then let's try again. Try again is just going to return a different message. It's going to use a cancel. I'm going to say try again. And said, this is try again. Hello. And there it is. This is try again. You hit cancel. This is a code example here of how MessageBox uses. So we understand we converted this to LPCTR string type. We did a retype here of LPCTR string, and we passed that in, and we said this was going to be an icon warning. So right here when we ran this is really kind of fun. We could specify the icon warning and see the little, that's the icon warning. Well, if we go over here and look at the documentation in the URL that we gave you, the return value, does have an integer value, ID abort, ID cancel, continue, ignore, ID no, ID okay, ID retry, all these. So the integer value it passes back is all good depending on what comes, but then we can take multiple parameters here, and this is very important to learn when you're doing Windows 32 programming, is that you can take multiple things here and separate multiple. So we're saying cancel, try, continue is our button type. We want an icon warning, and we want a button type 2, MB button 2. And so we can come in here, read this document here, and understand what those things are really looking for. Now, on the next video here in a little bit, whenever you get to it, we are going to go ahead and start looking at creating a window and tying some objects to it. Now, what your objective is after watching this first video is, one, go to msdn.com. Okay, and we'll do that right here. And if you don't have it, www.msdn.com, which is Microsoft Development Network. Okay, everybody's like, there's a lot of IDEs out there. You're going to sign in. I'm going to sign in with my Timothy Thelman account, and then you can go in here and you click right on Visual Studio. See that? Visual Studio. And Visual Studio 2019, current 2000, so click on Visual Studio 2019. You can get it for Mac also. And also set up and install. So if you want to do a setup and installation, but what I would do is do a setup and installation. Those are the instructions on how to do it. And then I would get Visual Studio Personal. That's free. It gives you an initial 30-day license, and then you just log in again, and it makes it permanent. And that would give you everything you need to do the C++, C#, F#, Visual Basic, Python, JavaScript, TypeScript, and R. It has its own web server if you want to do web development. It has all kinds of stuff built into it. It's a standard IDE that I've seen a lot of different companies use. And, if you download Visual Studio, just hit this button right here. And then I would just go and do the free Visual Studio community and go ahead and do the free download. Don't get into the money. This if you're just learning and playing. So, but that's that. get that downloaded. Go ahead and create your first project by picking this object type. Blow away everything that Microsoft gives you because you really don't need it for right now. And then go through and look at this code sample. And if you don't have access to the actual documents, then you can go ahead and pretty much see this from the screen. I'll pull this down and you can get a look at this. There's a return message box ID on the bottom, but that's really the whole thing. If I pull that down a little bit more, you can pretty much see all the code, and you can just type that in and play with message boxes. Pull that up in your browser, get your Visual Studio working, or create your first project, create your first message box, and play around with message box. Play around with the return values of that and kind of get used to your first Win32 API. So welcome to the class. Hope this is helpful, and hope to see you follow along with the rest of where we go. I will show you one thing just real quick. I'm going to show you a sample from video 12 in this series just real quick, and I think where we end up when we're all done, well, we're going to add a couple more things to this. I want to show you what this looks like. We're going to take every week and we're going to build on what we learn. And we just have a real silly game here, okay? And we will walk you through every step by step, where you can create this game. You can come down and snatch gas cans, and you can go through and try and win the course, and if you hit the brick wall, you die. There's multiple levels that we're playing with. We show you how to do field design. We show you how to do the animated flag over here. We're going to be working on scoring next week, and it's going to be a fun class. You'll learn how to do all this stuff that you see here. The students have followed along, and they've created their own games off of the same similar model. Some of them have built their own field. Some of them have used the fields I provided, and you can see that there where it is now loading a new field, and there's level 2. So, and now you can see the message boxes here. If I die, there's a message box. Your car is totaled. Start all over. You hit a brick wall. There's a message box. Okay, so that's just to give you an idea of where the class goes. It's a really simple, easy program, but it's just something fun to play with as we go around and get through all the levels of this code. So anyway, welcome to the video series, and hope to see you follow through. A lot of debugging techniques, a lot of loops, and again, if you don't have the basic Visual Studio C++ console development experience, before you dig into this very much, we get into some gnarly code and some gnarly types, and we get writing all kinds of good code here. So if you don't want to jump right into that, go ahead and download Visual Studio, blow away the code, and just go in and start doing plain old console code. You can use the same project type to do straight console code, or there's a console C++ project type, and you can go through all the solo learn examples. So would recommend that for you all, and get comfortable with solo learn the first 5 levels before you delve off into this stuff, and then when you get into this stuff, it'll make more sense. I hope you guys are blessed, and have a great day. Thanks. Stop the video. See ya.